Oh man, hopefully I don't cough too many times. Alright. Everything looks good. Can't tell if it is actually good, but everything looks good. Alright, where's my chat? My chatty chat. I'm doing it live. And now I just wait for y'all to show up. Hopefully y'all are ready for the new year. Hopefully. I'm not. I'm never ready. Says the stream is in excellent condition. That's good. Cool. Cool. Nah, that's too small. Put that all the way down. Oh, brother. Still recovering from pneumonia/flu. So, apologies. Plus, I'm still working. Now that I'm well enough to work, I've been working again. I'll probably be working through the holidays. So, but yeah, I'm still recovering from pneumonia/flu. Too tired to make this an upload, so I'm gonna do it live. Believe it or not, uploads are harder than live streams are. Much harder. Let's see. I've been busy working the last few days since the last time y'all saw me. Tired. Tired, and I got about an hour until my son gets dropped off. So, well, actually, like an hour and a half ish till my son gets dropped off. So I figure I'll do this one because I owe MrBallen quite a lot. So he'll be first in the shoot for my availability. So yeah. Just so I don't have to say at the end of the live stream, there's stuff in the description box. Check it out. There's stuff below the live stream video screen. Clickety-click that and stuff. Participate in the chat so I know how many people were here initially, because YouTube likes to lie to me about the view count. Yeah, that's about it. How y'all doing? I'm just waiting for some of the usual suspects to show up. This is actually pretty good. Yeah, this ain't bad. All right, let me read the chat. Ghost, you caught me in the bathroom. Got to take a shower, but I can wait a bit. Okay. Well, I appreciate it. Storm, what up, homie? How you doing, Storm? I keep forgetting if you've had your hip surgery or not yet. Mr. L, hi. Midnight Storm, hey there. Mr. L, hey Storm, what's up? Cole Cleveland twice. What are we up to tonight, y'all? It doesn't really matter which way you spell the y'all. Because they're both different dialectical, linguistic variations of the same, basically the same, the same word. Excuse me. I had a proper meal for the first time in like 2 weeks, so that was nice. Let me see. Storm. Not too much, man. It's actually warm out. 50 degrees. Okay. Have you had your hip surgery yet or not? I keep forgetting. Honestly. Mr. L, I'm not usual suspect because I'm never caught. You're caught all the time. What are you talking about? Same. The weather was great today. Midnight Storm. Now I got the surgery coming in January. Thanks for asking, though. Okay. I'm just making sure. Just checking up. I'm just lucky. I've broken some bones and stuff, but I've never had like super complicated I've never had spiral fractures or anything that required surgery Or actually, they told me my back requires surgery, and so does like all of my joints. I just refuse. I just refuse because I'm a stubborn old man. And I'm like, well, if I can still move it, it's worth the pain. All right, rather than them sticking stuff inside of me again. But yeah, all right. It looks like we have everybody that we're gonna have tonight in the chat. So yeah. Cole Cleveland, how long before winter comes can you feel it in the joints you messed up? Actually, yes, I can. Every time I wake up, they're quite inflamed. But it's more motivation to get up and start moving so that I can like lubricate them up. You know, nothing lubricates like warm blood. Athiana, sup? What's up, Athiana? How you doing? All right, so I think we got everybody we're going to have for tonight's live stream. This is going to be a MrBallen stream, just so y'all know. So nothing crazy, pretty nice and chill. We'll talk just a little bit. Most of it's going to be about MrBallen, though, and the situation we're going to see that is strange, dark, and mysterious that he's about to share with us. But yeah. And then Mr. L, luckily I've only broken my left arm twice, although the second time I didn't feel a lot of pain when I got run over while doing PE. Well, that freaking sucks. Storm, yeah, it kind of sucks. You need to stay on top of any joint issues. If you have any pain, get them checked out. Well, I've been in pain for like the past 15 years. So, but I'm still mobile. I'm still capable of doing everything I want and need to do. It's just more painful. And that's about it. But if anything, once I recover financially, I'm gonna go back down to Panama and get the stem cell treatments for my back and everything. Everybody I know that's gone down to Panama City Hospital to get the stem cell stuff done, it's like a 4 to 6 month program. So I'd probably have to come back here periodically. But I'll do that instead, so that they've actually had cases where they have fixed stuff that they say here in the States can't be fixed. So I'm going to look into that. And it's a lot of the guys from the same community that I'm from who have gone there, right? So I'm going to look into that stuff. But it is something like 10 grand to get the full treatment and recovery. So I'll have to grind real hard. This next year I'm going back to school to get some more skills that I can use without aggravating the federal government too much. So yeah, we'll see how that works out. All right, so this is MrBallen. We haven't seen MrBallen for a hot minute on the channel. And y'all haven't seen me in a hot minute. My lungs are still full of fluid, but whatever. Gruesome crime caught on camera. So I'm kind of curious what this is going to be about. It sounds really interesting to me. It sounds like one of those situations where it's like accidentally the crime was on camera. It wasn't on purpose. So let's see what's going on, shall we? Y'all ready for some strange, dark, and mysterious? I most certainly am. Bailey Jeremio, welcome to OK Human. Thank you very much, Bailey, for joining the OK Human tier of the channel. It's not how much you give, it's how many of you give. That actually matters. That being said, let's jump in.
The next time you're out walking around the streets of London, look up. Chances are good you will find a camera somewhere nearby. Because as of publishing this video right now today, London is one of the most surveilled cities in the entire world, with citizens being filmed up to 70 times a day. Now, the reason for all of these cameras is to deter and more effectively prosecute criminal activity. But the vast majority of the footage these hundreds of thousands of cameras all over London capture every day is just normal people doing normal things. But periodically, these cameras will capture people doing just horrible, illegal things. And today, I'm going to tell you the story behind one of those types of videos. Now, at first glance, the video clip, which we're going to play, will not be that shocking. But trust me, with context, it's horrifying. But before we get into that story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place because that's all we do, and we upload once a week. So, if that's of interest to you, in your will, please give the like button a treasure map that leads to a pot of gold. However, replace the gold with a $6 gift certificate to Blockbuster. Also, please subscribe to our channel and
dying over here. Give them a well, I mean, if they have a time machine, they just might be like John Titor or whatever and go back in time to when Blockbuster was still a major actually, they still have a Blockbuster that's operated locally where I live, and it's really nostalgic. It's really nostalgic. They still have like VCRs. They still have like Nintendos and Game Boys and all that kind of stuff. Like they got stuff from like 25 years ago that I remember, being around. They still have a Blockbuster here locally. But it's more like a nostalgia shop than anything else, because like you can't like buy the VCRs or buy the VCR players, which they got a bunch of them. You have to rent. So like you can rent like this big giant VCR player that I remember. It was like a Panasonic or Panoramic or whatever, a Panasonic VCR player, and then I can get like Jewel of the Nile, or I can get like some 80s flick, It's freaking awesome, or 90s flicks too. But yeah, they got all the stuff I remember from way back in the day in Blockbuster. It's really freaking awesome. It's really awesome. But yeah, there's one Blockbuster I know that's still around. It's here where I live, and it's pretty awesome. The nostalgia trip is incredible. But they don't do like the stuff Blockbuster used to do back in the day. Now it's all like rental and stuff like that. Like it's basically like a nostalgia center, for us older folks. Anyway, let's continue.
and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Okay, let's get into today's story. On the morning
Love MrBallen's intro. I probably blew out some eardrums with that one. Love MrBallen's intro.
morning of Friday, June 11th, 2021, in a suburb in the northwest of London, a man named David Klein woke up to his early morning alarm. David rolled out of bed, he got dressed, and he very carefully made his way downstairs to start getting ready for work. As David moved around this old brick house he was in, he was very careful not to make much noise because he didn't want to wake up his roommate, a 67-year-old widow named Deborah Chong.
Oh, he lives with a roommate, huh? Oh, wait. Have I told you how many times I got kicked out of other people's like houses and stuff? Because I was more clean and hygienic than they were, and they didn't like it. It made them all sorts of insecure, and they had an inferiority complex and all that kind of shit. I ever told any of y'all that? There's been quite a few times I lived in other people's houses, like renting a room for like $300 a month or something, just to save money. And like I would get kicked out because I'd be living with like 3 other people who were dirty birds and disgusting, and they didn't like doing their laundry more than like once a month, and half the time they were girls that I had fun times with, but still that didn't make up for how nasty they were. That reminds, I'll never do that again. Midnight Storm, welcome back to OK Human Tier. Welcome back to becoming a member. Appreciate it, Storm. I appreciate it. We are much closer to my goal of being able to do cool stuff on the channel. So thank you. Cole Cleveland, Netflix was offered a Blockbuster for purchase. I said no, Mr. L. Definitely a mistake on Blockbuster's part. Netflix is massive nowadays. Midnight Storm, I miss the old VCR tapes. Yeah, I miss them too. All of mine, all the ones that I used to have that were in the family, they got lost during a flood back in like, I want to say 96 or 98. Something like that. Anyways, continue.
Deborah was technically David's landlord, but she didn't charge him any rent. The two had met in church, and when Deborah had learned that David didn't really have a place to live, she had immediately volunteered her house and told David to come live with her for free. David couldn't believe her generosity and immediately took her up on the offer. And then after he had moved in, he learned that he was far from the first person who Deborah had allowed to come and live in her house rent-free. It would turn out Deborah, whose late husband had given her a ton of money in his will, felt like it was her responsibility and her duty to use her ample resources to house people that were kind of down on their luck.
See, this is why I say there should be conditions for being nice. There should always be like I tell people all the time, and they hate me for it sometimes, but some people understand. Be selfish. You have to be selfish. You have to take care of yourself first, because everything else is second, right? And those who are directly attached to your well-being, such as like my son is to me, right? Or if I had a wife, like they would be attached to my well-being, because we share a life, right? You have to be selfish first. You have to take care of yourself first, right? Right? And that ties into people really don't appreciate things. They really don't. Much as they profess to, they really don't appreciate things unless they have had to do something for it. That's why giving people money on the street, they're not working for it. They're just sitting there. I've been homeless. I know how the game goes. I know the game. I played it, right? I didn't really appreciate that much, except for like the GameStop people who gave me a chance for like 4 months. It was around 4 months that I worked for them. Technically out of their pocket, right? They were GameStop employees who, I came up and, they were like the 10th or 12th business I walked up to and was like, hey, I'm looking for money. I'm looking to make money. Like, what can I do for y'all? Like, I can clean, I can run errands, I can fix things, like I'm good with my hands, I'm a hard worker, and I'm not going to ask for much at all. And I got to a GameStop and, they were like, actually we have no openings and we're not hiring nobody, but this is what we can do for you. And they all paid me out of pocket. I ran errands for them. I cleaned up the office for them. I cleaned up their parking lot, picked up all the trash. I cleaned out the bathroom. I wiped their freaking windows and all that kind of stuff. I took care of like all their menial tasks for them out of their own pocket. Like they would pay me like, around $30 a day to do that. And I was living out of my car in the parking lot. So yeah, like if someone's not willing to work for your charity, your niceness, whatever, if someone's not willing to work for it, they're not going to appreciate it. And more often than not, if people just grasp at it, there's actually an inherent danger there for coming from those type of people. Right? People who want things for free are never good people. Ever. All right, let's continue.
She said it was her way of serving God. Also, David got the impression that Deborah just liked having people living with her in her home. It made her happy. But David would notice a distinct change in Deborah's personality around the time the COVID-19 pandemic started in early 2020. At that time, Deborah, like many other people, was very concerned about this global health crisis and wanted to learn more about what was happening and what could happen in the future. And so the way she did that is she obsessively began going on YouTube and began consuming COVID-19 related content and political content surrounding COVID-19 and the pandemic and lockdowns. But instead of becoming more educated and well-versed on what was happening in the world, Deborah's constant consumption of COVID-19 related content on YouTube really just made her feel incredibly stressed out and anxious.
Well, yeah, because there was so much contradictory stuff and so much false stuff that was going around. Like saying that masks saying masks got rid of COVID-19. That was a blatant lie. And then at first they said, don't buy masks. Masks don't work. Masks are more for medical professionals anyway as part of their job. And that's false. Right? The reason, and then they came out later and were like, actually, no, buy masks. Buy masks. Definitely buy masks. After the stock for all the people that made and manufactured the different types of masks and all the new companies that started making masks were entered into the stock market. Masks only reduce transmission. They don't prevent it. That's a very, very specific falsity that they were given to people. They didn't care about people. They didn't. Right? The masks help to reduce transmission, not prevent it or stop it. But then they walked it back later and they were like, actually, everybody should buy a mask. Actually, wear 3 masks, wear 4 masks, wear 20 masks. And I was, no. Yeah, y'all, like, I'm not even a medical professional. I'm not a professional of any kind, all right? When it comes to stuff like that. But I've worked hazmat. I'm certified in CBRN, right? I know how all this gear and equipment works. The type of masks they were having people go were not the type that actually stopped or completely and totally prevented any transmission. That was a lie, an absolute lie. And on YouTube, they were censoring everybody that was pointing stuff like this out, which is actual truth. And instead, they were pushing authoritative sources. Authoritative sources. You know what an authoritative source is? Because YouTube is being paid or is in cahoots with MSNBC, CNN, whatever, then they are considered on YouTube an authoritative source, and YouTube will shove all the traffic to them. Whereas you'll have people who are actual real doctors coming out saying, actually, this is not true. But those doctors would get canceled. They would get banned. They would get shadow banned. They'd have their accounts deleted. They would have people coming after them because it was treated more like a political thing than a health and safety thing. And even the health and safety supposed organizations were lying through their teeth the whole time. And we find that out years later. So it's no wonder that this poor woman, during the pandemic is being forced, because if she searches up stuff about this pandemic or whatever, she's only going to be given the authoritative sources that are considered and given that title by who they work with. Not because they're actually telling you the truth or they actually know what they're talking about. But because YouTube said, hey, look, this is an authoritative source because we say it is. So yeah, there you go. That's the only thing you're allowed to look at. Which is so, which got a lot of people killed. Mainstream media, the cathedral, the authoritative sources killed a lot of people. So it's no wonder this poor woman is being driven insane because the majority of the power in that sphere is, well, taking advantage of stupid people. I'll say that much. And this is coming from someone who's pretty stupid.
And as David began to see firsthand, Deborah's sudden high levels of anxiety really began wreaking havoc on her life. Years earlier, Deborah was officially diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, which is a mental illness that causes bouts of psychosis, which is like losing touch with reality. Now, pre-COVID, pre-pandemic, her symptoms were so mild that she basically led a totally normal life. But once the pandemic started and her YouTube quest for information caused that spike in stress and anxiety, it caused a spike in her symptoms. And so she began suffering from frequent and lengthy hallucinations and delusions. One time, David came home from work.
Good night, Ghost. We will see y'all next time, Ghost. Thank you for joining us.
And when he went inside the house, he found Deborah sitting at the kitchen table, diligently writing these handwritten letters to various British public figures. And when David asked her what she was doing, she explained to him that these British public figures were speaking directly to her through the YouTube videos she was watching. And so these handwritten letters were her response letters back to these public figures.
Actually, that's not so crazy because they were doing a lot of what they were doing during the pandemic on purpose. There was a nefarious plan. There was an agenda, right? 15 days to stop the spread. Now 6 months. Now 2 years. Now do it again. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And when the sitting president of the time tried to lock down the country and not allow people from like all over the world to come to the U.S., he was called a racist, bigot, homophobe, whatever, for trying to lock down the country and stop it from spreading to the U.S. or getting any worse. But then he tried to do that, and then, they reversed it. And it's people say it was on the president for that one. One part, yes, because he believed in lockdowns and all. The lockdowns didn't do anything. But also because he went along with what Congress was doing instead of saying, you know what, no. Executive order. We're not going to shut down. I'm going to let you states deal with this. But then he let the states deal with it, and they all dealt with it differently, and we see the results, right? Like Florida did the best out of almost everybody else. Texas did better than most states. Pretty much all of the red states did way better than the blue states. Way better. So yeah. But that's more because a lot more people got exposed and built up an immunity because they were healthy versus locking down and then being like on recycled air, which was a huge mistake. Anyway, enough of that. Old man rambling, whatever.
In May of 2021, Deborah's hallucinations had gotten so bad that doctors intervened and forcibly injected her with an antipsychotic medication. And while these meds definitely reduced Deborah's symptoms, they also had some pretty negative side effects as well. Namely, they totally curbed her appetite and they made sleeping really challenging. And so pretty quickly, those two side effects combined made Deborah feel really weak and tired basically all the time, to the point where she sometimes needed David to literally hold her up by her arm just to walk down the street. Now, David, of course, had no problem helping Deborah with whatever she wanted. I mean, she had done so much for him, but David had work, and so he was only really available to help her in the mornings and in the evenings during the week. And so he had actually spoken to Deborah about hiring a full-time caretaker that could live with her and just take care of her at the level she needed all the time. and Deborah was open to it. She actually called a company that offered that service, and they told her they would get someone out to her, but it would take some time before her caretaker was actually assigned to her. Now, David was really pleased with this development, but he really wished they would speed it up, because again, every time he was away all day at work, he knew Deborah was home by herself, and so he was just so worried something was going to happen to her when he was gone. So after David gathered up all of his things and very quietly made his way from the kitchen to the front door, he paused for a moment and said a silent prayer in his head for Deborah's safety and protection while he was away at work, and then he opened the front door, quietly went outside, shut the door behind him, and headed off to work. A few hours later, David came home from work, he went back inside of the house, and the first thing he did is he called out for Deborah. But Deborah didn't call back, and the house was very quiet, and so David took off his shoes and walked around the first floor, kind of calling out for Deborah as he walked, but again, there was no answer. And so after walking the whole first floor and not finding her, he yelled one more time really loudly, "Hey, Deborah, are you here?" And after hearing nothing, he pulled out his phone and he called Deborah. And as the phone was ringing, he could hear Deborah's phone ringing upstairs. And so he thought, okay, maybe Deborah is upstairs, she fell asleep, and her phone's just next to her on the bed. And so with David's phone still calling Deborah's phone, David began walking upstairs. And when he got to the top of the stairs, he just followed the sound of Deborah's ringing phone into her bedroom. And when he went in there, Deborah was not in there. Her phone was though, and so were her glasses. They were both just sitting on the bed. Those were two items that Deborah would bring with her anywhere she went. And so trying not to panic, David called out a few more times for Deborah, but again, there was no answer. And so after quickly searching her bedroom and not finding her, he searched all the other rooms upstairs, but again, she just was not there. She was not in the house. And so David began calling and texting friends from church and other people that knew Deborah to see if anybody had heard from her or knew where she was. But no one did, and the only people who had recently talked to her said she was totally incoherent, talking about spirits and demons and the destruction of all mankind. And so, believing Deborah must be suffering from a schizophrenic hallucination somewhere out in the city, David picked up his phone again and he called the police. When the police showed up at the house, David filled them in on what was going on, and the police told him, hey, look, we'll go back and review all of the CCTV camera footage taken from outside of your house. We're bound to see footage of Deborah leaving her house at some point, and then we can just watch where she goes. And so David felt reassured, and the police felt very confident, but when the police went back to the station and began reviewing all of this security footage taken from roughly outside of Deborah's house, there was no footage of her ever leaving the house. There was only footage the day before of Deborah going into the house, but she never left. And so naturally, the police went back to Deborah and David's house, and they thoroughly searched that house, believing Deborah had to be in there somewhere. But despite searching everywhere in this house, in every crawl space, in the attic, the basement, every closet, everywhere, she wasn't there. It would take the police nearly a month, but they would eventually figure out where Deborah went. And to say they were surprised at where she went is a massive understatement. But to understand what happened, we have to go back to the very beginning of Deborah's very strange disappearance story.
How much you want to bet somebody followed her to her house, knowing where the cameras were located, found a way inside her house, unalived her in the house, and then somehow like stuffed her under the floorboards or some stuff. Something like that. All right, let me read the chat real quick. Let me read the chat. Nick Gamus trying to spit some rhymes. I mean, it's okay, dude. It's just that, like, the stuff you're spitting, my dude, would be more like stuff you would put inside of, like you would make it part of a album. Right? It wouldn't be a headliner track, is what you're doing. I appreciate it, though. I do like it when people spit some stuff in the chat, whether it be raps, lyrics, or otherwise. But yeah, hello, Nick Gamers. How you doing? Mr. L, they lower the infection for people. Yep. Nick Gamus spitting some more. You should write it all down, my dude. Write it all down and then work on it. Mr. L, at least they weren't anti-vax. Yeah, that's true. Anti-vax is kind of dumb. However, I'm anti this specific vax. I'm anti this specific vax. Now, I've been getting vaccinations all of my life. In fact, during my career, I was more vaccinated than dogs, cows, and other animals all combined, because I'd be going all over the world, and to get exposed to all sorts of stuff. So we get 30 shots in a freaking day. But I never went and got the COVID vaccinations, because I knew immediately it was a mistake to start using it immediately. There was thousands, and I mean thousands, of personnel with the first 4 batches of the vaccine who were all medically retired. And they were medically retired because of reactions to the different COVID vaccines. Because I knew it wasn't ready. And everybody I know who's a pro, I'm talking about guys who I worked with, guys who I went on missions with, who went to medical school. They went to medical school. When you go to medical school as military personnel in this capacity, you are trained to a surgeon's level of medical expertise and training and experience and stuff. Right? That's how much they train you to get up there. They know what they're talking about. And they were like, I'm not getting it. Not a single one of them. They were like, nuh-uh, son. No. It's not ready. It's not ready. We haven't tested it. We don't know what the long-term exposure effects are. We don't know if there's going to be something horrific that happens because of the result of this. They were like, hell no. We're not going to do anything with this until we know for certain, and we have the research, and the time has been put into it. All the vaccines before that had a long time trial. And then they were approved, and then they were used. And they still have some effects. They still do. Anybody who says otherwise is a liar. But it's better for the majority of people to try to get a vax than not. It's just that with this particular one, no. I'm waiting until we get conclusive, 100%, we know exactly what's up with this. But then again, I'm apparently immune to COVID. I never got COVID. I never suffered any ill effects from it. I was asymptomatic the whole time. So yeah. Mr. L, breaking news. Andrew Tate has been arrested. It's not the first time, won't be the last time. Won't be the last time. They're gonna go into his compound, search for evidence, which there never is any. All it is some beta freaking simps who are basically doing an international version of swatting, because they don't like the fact that Andrew Tate's a better man than they are. It's a fact. It's an absolute fact. Small-minded people scorn what they can't have or be. Right? And so because these people, they go after Andrew Tate all the time, they don't like the fact that he's as much of a man as you could possibly find a man to be. Because he's unashamedly that. And he's making, the vast majority of loser men wake up and stop being losers, stop being simps, stop being weak and useless, so that they're easily taken advantage of. They don't like that, so they're going to try to take them down all the time. It's nothing new and nothing surprising. And they're going to try and find evidence again. It's going to end up being, everything's going to end up being false again. Everything's going to end up being a lie again. And it's just, the cycle's going to repeat. That's just how it's going to go down. So yeah, I know he didn't do it. Whatever it is they accuse him of, based upon my personal experience with the Cobra. And besides, he's not the kind of guy who needs to do anything like that. Well, this and what's funny is that people think of those type of people. They think of Andrew Tate. Quite usually, are the same people who sanction kid drag shows. Quite usually, the type of people they accuse Andrew of being, the same people that do that are the same type of people who would be doing that or are. So it's kind of funny the projection is missed. Every single time I'm proven right. Every single time. So yeah, like these people are projecting. They're projecting what they are or what they sanction onto Andrew Tate. That's just what they do. Let me see. Cole Cleveland, not against normal vaccinations, but I wasn't let them force me to get one. Yeah, definitely not. Definitely not. It's my choice whether I choose to take the chance of dying or living. That's my choice. Depends on if you're combat or not. Combat medics only get certified at DMT levels legally. Cole Cleveland, keyword legally. I mean, if you're talking about the regular military, I mean, you can have like PAs and all that kind of stuff, right? Now, medics, however, for the most part, are enlisted, so they'd be doing stuff that's on the blue collar side of the medical field, for the most part. But if you're like in a special capacity, then you're going to get sent to medical school for like 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and get trained up to, to the level of a surgeon so that you can infill to other countries or friendly nations and teach their personnel or teach a local populace, how to take care of themselves medically, how to be, do all that kind of stuff. Nick Game is, and I do have a rap album, just like to rap when trying to relay a message like Nipsey Russell, not Nipsey Hussle, although I like NH. Mr. L, I mean, if he's banging his flesh, that's whatever, but it's possible he could also be involved in human trafficking. Him having less money doesn't matter a whole lot, but we'll have to wait and see. Andrew Tate being a better man, Lamau. Well, that's a fact, though. That is a fact. He is a better man. Now, is he considered a good man? Well, that depends on where you're looking at it from. Now, me looking at it, I'm like, I consider him a better man than me because he is a millionaire, and I'm not. So that's a factual statement. He's a better man than me because he's a millionaire. Now, is he a better person? That's debatable, but I would consider him on par with me, if not better than me, because I'm inherently more selfish than he is, and people fail to realize this. I'm more selfish than Andrew Tate. According to the morals that he is balanced against, because he is seen as the way he is, people go on that metric, right? But then again, look at all the people who say he's a evil man or misogynistic or whatever. Look at the people that say that. Now compare them to him. Now compare them to me. Now compare them to their peers. Now, who are the losers and who are the winners? There's no in between. Okay, that's one metric to go off of. If you're talking about a moral good, okay, by which morals? Which ethics? Are you going by Enlightenment ideals? Are you going by Greco-Roman, the Dark Ages morals and ethics? Are we going by the left's moral and ethics? We're going by the right's moral and ethics? Like, what are we going off of? That's all debatable, right? According to the left, morals and ethics are debatable. So, we'll go off of that then. But yeah. Nick Gamos, Charles Bronson, 10 times a man that Andrew Tate wishes to be. Charles Bronson was pretty good. Some skeletons in that closet, but pretty good. Storm, if I had $10,000 on a monthly budget right now, and I said go find some ladies of the nighttime, what would I do? What I'm doing right now, I've got 7 of them that come in and out of my house. Sometimes all at the same time. Sometimes one at a time. Sometimes one for every day, or two for a couple days. That's what I do. Midnight Storm, is it all going to be perfect and vetted and adjusted for tax revenue? I'm not sure what you mean. Mr. Uriel, oh yeah, you know you didn't do it, sure. You truly don't anyone in reality. This is how the world works. You can live with a person for decades, not truly know them, even if you think you do. That is true. But I have a greater amount of faith in a man such as Andrew Tate. Now, belief, that's different. Hope, no. But I have greater faith based upon my experience and the fact that I am closer to Andrew Tate than I am most anyone else. But personally, I would say that he is a much better man than I am. Personally, I would say that. Because I am more inherently selfish and self-centered than he is. He's the top G because he is confident in himself, but it does not rule how he treats those who involve themselves in his life. I'm kind of the opposite of that, I think. I'm selfish. I really am. And I'm kind of self-centered. Or at least I am now, I think. I don't just give out to charity like they do, like the Tristan brothers do. They give a lot to charity. Mistakenly in my thinking, but whatever. And you know, and when it comes to being self-centered, I totally am self-centered. I'm taking care of myself before anyone else. And that extends to my son, right? Because I have to take care of myself as good as I can before I can do my best for him. But that's the opposite of what most other people think of, right? But then again, that's my personal perspective. That's my personal filter, lens, whatever you want to call it, right? I'm an individualist, absolutist. So yeah. Anyway, let's continue with the MrBallen video. Enough chatting up. Let's do some more MrBallen. Let's save this for the weekend live stream when we can go ham. In fact, the weekend live stream we can do we can do all the stuff Andrew Tate and Red Pill and Manosphere and Toxic Male that I am stuff, okay? Let's save that for another live stream.
Last weekend, I looked over and I saw old Seagull Lung sitting at his miniature 1999-era G3 iMac, and I couldn't help but notice he was looking a little downtrodden. And when I saw what he was doing on his iMac, I knew why. He was hitting refresh over and over and over again on his MySpace page, and it wasn't changing the numbers. Old Lung hasn't had a view on his MySpace page since 2010.
Seagull Lung. Seagull Lung. That's awesome. That's awesome. Oh, Lungy. That's awesome. I hope at some point I'm able to like hire editors to do awesome stuff like this. Definitely. Most certainly. Like old Lungy. Seagull Lung. Anyway, let's continue.
To cheer him up, I decided I would purchase a MySpace view bot and flood his page with tens of views. So I ran over to my windmill-powered laptop and began slapping away at the keys to navigate to an online vendor that sold MySpace view bots. However, as soon as I clicked on the link, www.thiswebsiteisavirus, not an online vendor for MySpaceViewbots.com, I knew I had made a terrible mistake. Unbelievably, that website website was riddled with malware, and so immediately my windmill-powered laptop caught on fire and then exploded, sending shrapnel raining down on me. Luckily, old Long was in the other room, and he heard the commotion, and he leapt into the room, and he pushed me out of the way just in time. And then after the dust had settled, old Long gave me a big hug, and then slapped me right in the anti-tragus, and said, Papa, wenn du ständig auf gefährliche Webseiten klickst, dann brauchst du NordVPN. Which, of course, in German means, Papa, if you're going to keep clicking on dangerous websites, then use NordVPN.
Oh man, just the wacky stuff that he comes up with. Love MrBallen. Love MrBallen. He has so much fun with all of his stuff. It's hilarious. But yeah, MySpace. Damn. I think I still have a MySpace. I'll have to check. But yeah, old Seagull Lung. Oh man. MySpace was actually better than Facebook, but like Facebook, when it came out, they just took over. They just took over. Like Tom was everybody's friend, and we all betrayed him. But it's okay. He sold MySpace to I think he sold MySpace to Justin Timberlake for like 40 million or something, and he's retired and just living his life doing whatever. So anyone that says MySpace was a failure, they can just eat it, honestly.
And boy was old Luggy right. A VPN, or virtual private network, is a service that keeps you safe when you browse the internet. Device 2 and sign up for NordVPN/Mr. or cleared it about 10 months.
All right, back to the story.
It all started about 10 months before Deborah actually went missing in August of 2020. That month, Deborah met a 36-year-old woman named Gemma Mitchell at one of her church prayer groups. Like Deborah, Gemma was very religious, and so the two women became fast friends despite being 30 years apart in age. Deborah would confide in Gemma about her mental health struggles, and Gemma would confide in Deborah about her house/financial troubles. Basically, Gemma, a couple years earlier, had given money to a contractor to fix up her house, but the contractor had taken her money, not done any work, and then run off, basically robbing Gemma. But Gemma really needed to do these renovations, and so she wound up hiring a second contractor who did begin work, but during this process, Gemma realized she would never be able to recover the money that was stolen from her from the first contractor, and so when she realized she wasn't going to get that money, she knew she would not be able to fully pay the second contractor for his work. And so when the second contractor found out he was not going to get paid, he stopped work immediately, despite the fact that there was no working heat in Gemma's house and there was a huge hole in her roof. But Gemma had no way to fix this, and so she and her mom were just living in this house that was just totally freezing all the time.
And I bet you anything, they decided to steal money from this woman. They decided to steal money from this woman. Yeah, so much for religion, you know, being a moral, what is it, like guard post.
Deborah had been so moved by Gemma's situation that very quickly after meeting her, she offered £200,000 to Gemma to finish the renovations on her house, under the condition that one room in Gemma's new house would be solely dedicated to Christian ministry. Gemma was overwhelmed with gratitude. She could not believe that Deborah was willing to do this for her. And so, of course, she agreed to her terms without any hesitation. After that, the two women began texting all the time about this renovation project. Deborah would suggest paint colors and different things to do with the inside of the house, and Gemma would text updates about the different contractors she had talked to who could do pieces of the renovation. Deborah was always inviting Gemma over to her house, and she even began referring to Gemma as her sister. And Gemma loved it because Gemma actually had always wanted to be much closer with her own biological sister, but they had kind of drifted apart. And so for Gemma, Deborah really did feel like the sister she was supposed to have. But their relationship was about to change drastically. In May of 2021, so 8 months after the two women met for the first time, and 1 month before Deborah would vanish, Deborah was forcibly injected with that antipsychotic medication in order to combat her paranoid schizophrenia. And right after Deborah got this injection, she began treating Gemma totally differently. She basically stopped communicating altogether with Gemma, and then in the rare times she would text Gemma, it was just to berate her about being a hoarder or being too messy and sloppy. Gemma didn't really know what to make of her friend's new behavior, but she knew, Deborah was going through a really tough time, and so Gemma just kind of took the abuse and didn't say anything. When Gemma did try to talk to Deborah by asking about the renovation project, which was quickly approaching on the horizon, Deborah would tell Gemma not to talk about it, that it was too stressful and just don't bring it up again. And then one day, Deborah just called Gemma out of the blue and said, "I'm not funding the renovation anymore, it's over, you're on your own." Gemma felt totally devastated and pleaded with Deborah to please reconsider. But Deborah was not about to change her mind, and in fact, on this call, she would tell Gemma, hey, you should just sell your house. And in fact, until you sell your house, don't contact me. And then Deborah hung up. Gemma didn't know what to do. She felt like she really could not sell her house because it was kind of like a family heirloom that had been passed down for generations, and so it just felt wrong to sell it. But on the other hand, without help, she would never have enough money to fix the house up. And so she was totally stuck, and she felt like her only option was to go to Deborah and have one more conversation and just really plead her case and see if maybe there was some chance Deborah would change her mind. So, on the morning of June 11th, 2021, so this is the day that Deborah goes missing, Gemma showed up on Deborah's porch and rang her doorbell. She arrived just after David had left for work.
Okay, so what did I say earlier that I was guessing happened? What did I say earlier? What was that I said earlier? That my guess was that somebody else came in and then did something to Deborah and hit her somewhere in the house. That's my guess. What do y'all think happened? Put that in the chat real fast so we can't take it back. What do y'all think happened? Because I said much earlier in the video, I was like, let me guess. Someone else got to her home, found a way around the cameras, because there's no cameras inside the home, I'm assuming. And they most likely unalived her, right? Caused her to be deceased, and then hit her somewhere in the house. What do y'all think happened? What do y'all think? When it comes to money, people will do anything. People will do anything, especially desperate people who put themselves in that situation. What do y'all think? And anyway, yeah, we'll talk about the Andrew Tate, all the other stuff. We'll talk about all the other things on the New Year's live stream. On the New Year's live stream, I'm going to try to make it like an all-day thing. Make it to where it's all day until New Year's. And then we can all say Happy New Year together or whatever. Fireworks are going to be outside my house and everything. So yeah. Well, we'll do that then. But yeah. Mr. L, yeah, I'm thinking the same thing, Badger, especially since the older woman wasn't seen leaving the house. Yeah, yep. That's my guess. What else? What do the rest of y'all think? What do the rest of y'all think? Anybody else in the chat? Anybody else have a guess? Fuzzy's package. Just woke up and missed a story. It's a fine. You can watch this later then. Cole Cleveland. She took her in and realized how much money they could get out of her. Okay. Fuzzy's package. Looks like my hometown in England, though. Okay. Cole Cleveland. Starts off good, ends bad kind of thing. That's my guess. I already put my guess down. Midnight Storm, I'm drinking. Okay. Hopefully it's good. Hopefully it's good. Mr. L. Well, the house is made of brick, so maybe they pulled a cask of Amontillado type of deal. That wouldn't surprise me, actually. And someone finally got the reference to my favorite wine ever. Amontillado. That's my favorite wine. Even though you spelled it a little wrong. But yeah, Amontillado is my favorite wine to ever exist. Ever. Like once you've had a glass of Amontillado, and each glass is like $2,500. That's how expensive Amontillado wine is. That's how expensive. They don't even fill up the entire glass. They give you a third of the glass. And that's worth $2,500. Damn. Like that whole situation made me feel like a brokey. But yeah, that's possible. Anybody else got guess? Going once? Going twice? Nothing? Anybody else got a guess? Mr. L, it is worth that much money. It is so damn good. It is so damn good. And I've had good wine. My taste buds are not dead. I've had really good wine. You know, my outer circle used to be like beginner millionaires back in the day. Yes, I used to be a millionaire until I got divorced. And then I wasn't a millionaire anymore. But yeah, like Amontillado, at least for me, the best wine I've ever had. Is there possibly a better one out there? Maybe, but I've yet to have it. But I'm not a millionaire anymore. So like, that's probably never going to happen. But yeah, if Mr. L, even though you're probably never going to drink, even if you had a sip, you would appreciate it greatly. All right, so going once, going twice. Okay. No more guesses as to what happens next. Let's go.
A few moments later, Deborah slowly made her way to the door. She opened it up. She saw Gemma out there and asked, what's going on? And Gemma just very politely said, would you please let me come in? And can we just talk one more time about the renovation? And Deborah, who was not very enthused at the idea of having this conversation, said, you know what? Okay, come on in. And so Gemma would go inside and the two women would go sit down and they'd exchange some pleasantries. And then at some point when there was a break in the conversation, Gemma brought up the renovation. She had actually written out this whole speech about how incredible Deborah was and how these renovations, if they went through with them, would mean so much to her, Gemma, and her family. But as Gemma is going through this pitch, Deborah just cuts her off and says, Gemma, I'm sorry, but my decision is final. I am not paying for the renovation. I'm sorry. A little while later, both Gemma and Deborah would leave Deborah's house. And there actually is CCTV footage that shows the pair walking on Deborah's street right outside of her house. However, the reason the police did not flag this footage when they first were scanning all of that footage to figure out where Deborah went is because when you watch the footage of the two women together, it actually only looks like one person. It looks like Gemma. But Gemma is wheeling a huge suitcase right behind her, and as it would turn out, Deborah was inside of it. It's assumed that after Deborah was forcibly given that antipsychotic medication for her paranoid schizophrenia, that it really leveled her out. She was suddenly thinking very clearly for the first time in months. And in this clear state of mind, it's believed she realized the 200,000-pound gift she was giving to Gemma, someone she barely knew, was a bad decision. And so she just wanted to back out of it.
Okay, I did not think about that. I didn't think about that. Then again, like 90% of the time, when women commit crimes, it's harder for people to believe it. Because sexism and gynocentrism. When women commit crimes, horrific ones, people assume their innocence until they're proven guilty by default. Whereas with a man, if he's accused, they're going to assume he is guilty until he's proven innocent, and then he's still guilty just because he's a man. Just because he's male. So that's another factor that that's obviously not brought up here. But it is a major factor, a huge factor. Our society is very gynocentric. Very gynocentric. So the reason why it wasn't flagged is because it is partly because of everything else, right? But one part of that, without a shadow of a doubt, is because Gemma's female. That's a part of it.
And so, back inside of Deborah's house, when Deborah and Gemma are sitting there, and Gemma is doing her speech to try to convince Deborah to change her mind, and Deborah is saying, no, my final answer is no, it's over, that's when Gemma snapped. She grabbed a blunt object, we don't know what it was, and she smashed Deborah right over the skull and fractured her skull, causing Deborah to fall unconscious and slump onto the floor. And then Gemma leapt on top of Deborah's unconscious body. Gemma pulled out a knife and cut Deborah's head off. And then afterward, Gemma cleaned up all the blood in the house and then stuffed Deborah's body and head into that big suitcase. And then after Gemma stole several legal documents and a copy of Deborah's will, she walked out of Deborah's house with Deborah in the suitcase behind her. Gemma would walk with Deborah all the way back to her house, and then she would leave the suitcase, with Deborah still inside of it, in her backyard. She would just leave it there for 2 weeks, and then after those 2 weeks, Gemma would take the suitcase again, still with Deborah's body inside of it, and transport it 250 miles away to a seaside town where she would dump it. And in that seaside town, some vacationers would discover Deborah's body and call it in to the police. On July 6th, 2021, police would arrest Gemma on suspicion of murder. When they arrested her, they showed up at her house and used a battering ram to smash in her front door. And then when the door finally literally smashed open, Gemma was just standing there waiting for the police, as if she knew this was going to happen and she's just waiting to be taken away. When the police would actually go into Deborah's house and search it, they would find a fake copy of Deborah's will where all of Deborah's estate was handed over to Gemma and Gemma's mother. In October of 2022, Gemma was found guilty of murder and sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 34 years. To this day, Gemma insists she did not kill Deborah.
Crazy eyes. Anybody else see it? Crazy eyes. Would you let this woman in your house? I sure as hell wouldn't. In fact, I'd call it in as her being a suspicious person. Hell no, I wouldn't let her in my house. She got the crazy. She got the crazy all over her face.
So that's going to do it. If you got something out of this episode and you haven't done this already, in your will, give the like button a treasure map to a pot of gold. But replace the gold with a $6 gift certificate to Blockbuster.
Misogyny.
Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. We have a podcast called the MrBallen Podcast that puts out brand new exclusive stories on Monday mornings, and on Thursday mornings, we put out the remastered audio of our best YouTube videos. Again, it's called the MrBallen Podcast, and it's available exclusively on Amazon Music. Consider donating to our charity. It's called the MrBallen Foundation, and it provides support to victims of violent crime as well as their families. Monthly donors to the MrBallen Foundation.
All right, there we go, folks. There we go. Gruesome crime caught on camera from MrBallen. A woman was murdered for her money. Oh, brother. Oh, brother. Anyway, all right, so let me read the chat. I mean, that was, I wasn't thinking about that. I wasn't thinking about that. Because me personally, if I was doing TSE or SSE, you know, I would flag everything. If somebody's carrying too heavy of a package, I'd flag it. Too heavy of garbage bags coming out of the location, I'd flag it. Right? So I'm assuming people are at least as somewhat competent as I am when it comes to their work. But apparently, a good amount of them are not. Let me see. Mr. L. Maybe you should have asked the wife and see if you could get away with her. Hell no. Hell no. You know, I'm a misogynist, but I'm not that type. Mr. L, I've tried wine alcohol so far. I've not found one that I've liked. Okay. Mr. L, oh man, she was inside the suitcase. Damn. Yeah, we were all wrong. We were all wrong. Mr. L, nah, women can be just as evil as men. It can actually be argued that women can be more evil than men, more insidious. It's just that men are more violent to a degree, because the level of violence we're capable of a greater level of violence than women are, but women are more insidious. I think that's the easiest way to put it. But yeah, humans are humans at the end of the day. That is true. Well, I mean, would you have flagged that footage? I would have, most certainly. Everybody that's in that footage around those times that is anywhere near the house is a person of interest. They're a POI. So they would all get questioned. They would all get investigated. After all, it's a person walking along with a suitcase. An incredibly heavy suitcase they're struggling with. Kind of suspicious. Mr. O, yeah, cuff her. Throw her under the jail. Holy crud, that picture of her looks creepy as hell. I'm grabbing a shotgun. But yeah, like it's just a difference of SOPs, right? And assumptions, right? Me, I assume anyone and everyone is capable of the same things. Just different degrees of the same things that can be thrown in. But you know, in my experience, in my training, you know, so much as like someone passing by a building, they're a person of interest. If someone passes by a building and they look at the building, they're a person of interest. If someone is like has an attached backyard, and to get to, you know, their neighbor's yard, they have to go through the backyard of that house, they're a person of interest. If they have any and all connections to that specific site, they're a person of interest. That's how it's supposed to work. But nowadays, you know, a lot of organizations, especially law enforcement and federal, at least in the U.S., nowadays they do less of a job or service and more licking the boot of whoever's in power, or whoever's infiltrated the organizations. They're very corrupt nowadays. The FBI, all of them, they're very corrupt. I mean, no one can argue that anymore. They really can't. But yeah, it's just like I assume people are at least as competent as I was when I was doing doing my type of work. But I think of myself as less than. So my assumption is quite often wrong, it seems. So anyway, Mr. O, Badger, do you think I'm a communist? Even though I say I'm actually anti-communist. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I think you share a lot of the same ideals in a certain way, but you seem to pick stuff from communism instead of describing yourself or ascribing yourself to communism as a whole. So yeah, Mr. O. Oh, well, I guess if you flag everything, that works. Fair enough, makes sense. Well, you don't flag everything, but if there's any type of possible connection to said whatever it is, right? Then it has to be followed up on. Or at least that's how I was trained. Mr. O, they've always been corrupt. Cole Cleveland, most definitely a communist. Not fully. Mr. O, they've just been corrupted by different people over the years. There's always been a certain level of corruption, but not to the magnitude we have now. Not to this magnitude. Nowhere close. Nowhere close. It's much worse now. At least back in the day, it could be seen, and then once it's been seen and exposed, they would try to correct it, and things would be okay for a while. Nowadays, it's just been getting worse. There's been no gap in between. Mr. L, I'm definitely against communism, since communism is anti-democracy by its very nature. Well, I'm anti-democracy. I am more of a constitutional Republican, so I'm for constitutional republic, strictly so, nothing else. Or anarchy. That'd be cool, anarchy. All the people who are worried about the warlords are actually the people who would make themselves warlords. So yeah, I'm not worried about it. An issue. So what did y'all think about this? Think about this story. Me personally, I'm like, damn, son. Damn. Mr. L, well, republic, same difference. Nope. Democracy and republic, very different things. Very different things. In a democracy, it's mob rule. In a republic, you have representatives. But yeah, this story was something. It's not new on the MrBallen channel or this channel, but still, it took a twist I wasn't expecting because they said they never saw her leave the house. So the assumption made was that so she had to still be in the house. So that was the assumption I made. But it turns out actually she did leave the house, just not of her own accord, which I didn't even think about that. But yeah, what did y'all think? What did y'all think? Y'all let me know in the comments down below. I'm recovering right now, so I'm still nasally and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, what did y'all think? So anyway, that being said, thank y'all. Thank y'all. Seriously, thank y'all. Thank y'all for being here. Thank y'all for showing up. Thank y'all for all the stuff you're doing in the chat. Appreciate you. We got people spitting rhymes in game and, talking about the story and also talking about other stuff. I appreciate it. I enjoy it. All right, so y'all know what time it is. You know what time it is. You like me, you like MrBallen, you like this stuff, you like this type of content, like, share, comment, and subscribe. And then become a member, okay human or decent human, 2 tiers, both are cheap. That's the best way to support the channel. There's a content scarcity because I'm working through jobs and I'm a single father. So I only have so much time to go around nowadays. I don't shill, but I do have bills. Kindly and thank you. like a someone I like a lot says. Inishmu. There will be a New Year's live stream that will happen. There will be drinks and possibly food, and we'll talk about all the things. Uh, and we're gonna have fun. Well, welcome in the new year together. So that being said, thank y'all again. Love you guys. Be good. Be safe. Make a good life for yourselves. Okay. We're soon to be in the new year, so be prepared for that one. And I will see y'all in the next one. BlastCapBadger out.